The auctioneer's voice rang through the dusty town square of Holbrook, Arizona Territory, calling out numbers that made Willa Bennett's stomach turn to ice, because she knew those numbers represented the worth men placed on her life. It was 1882, and the late afternoon sun beat down mercilessly on the wooden platform where she stood alongside three other women, all of them trembling in their worn calico dresses, all of them trying to maintain whatever dignity remained when being sold like livestock to settle debts they had never incurred themselves. Willa's father had died 3 months earlier, crushed beneath a mine shaft collapse outside of town. The mine owner had claimed her father owed money for equipment and supplies, debts that supposedly fell to his only daughter. She had protested, argued, even tried to find work to pay whatever fictional amount they claimed, but the territorial judge had sided with the mining company. Now she stood here, 22 years old, being bartered to the highest bidder. "This one's strong," the auctioneer declared, grabbing Willa's arm and forcing her to step forward. She jerked away from his touch, earning scattered laughter from the crowd of men gathered below. "Got spirit, too. Good for breeding and working. We'll start the bidding at $50. Willa scanned the faces below, seeing everything from bored disinterest to predatory hunger. Her hands clenched into fists at her sides. She had grown up in this territory, had helped her mother nurse sick neighbors before cholera took her when Willa was 16. She had learned to shoot, to ride, to survive in this harsh land. And now she was being reduced to a commodity, a thing to be purchased and owned. "60, called a voice from the back. "70, countered a heavy-set man in the front row whom Willa recognized as Dutch Cartwright, a cattle baron known for his cruelty to both animals and the workers on his ranch. The bidding continued, and Willa felt her hope crumbling with each shouted number. She caught sight of other women in the crowd, their eyes downcast, unwilling or unable to meet her gaze. This was the reality of the Arizona Territory, where the law bent in favor of men with money and power, where a woman without a husband or male relative was vulnerable to any scheme that might profit someone else. $100, Dutch Cartwright declared, his yellow teeth showing in a grin that made Willa's skin crawl. The auctioneer looked around expectantly. 100 going once, going twice, $200. The voice came from the side, deep and calm and cutting through the tension like a knife. Every head turned. Willa's eyes found the speaker, a tall man leaning against the post outside the general store. He wore dusty trail clothes and a well-worn hat, and even from the platform, she could see the weathered tan of someone who spent his life outdoors. He pushed off from the post and walked forward with an easy, confident stride that suggested he feared nothing and no one. "Now hold on," Dutch Cartwright sputtered. "That's irregular. You can't just—" "I got the money right here," the stranger said, pulling a leather pouch from his vest. "200 in gold. That more than covers whatever trumped-up debt you all claim this woman owes." The auctioneer's eyes gleamed with greed. "Well now, that's generous, but the bidding isn't closed. Would you care to go higher, Mr. Cartwright?" Dutch's face reddened. "250. 300, the stranger countered without hesitation. A murmur ran through the crowd. That was more money than most men in Holbrook saw in 6 months. Willa stared at her unexpected benefactor, trying to understand his motivation. He did not look at her with the same hunger she had seen in other eyes. His gaze was steady, almost businesslike, as he faced down Dutch Cartwright. Dutch swore under his breath. He clearly wanted her, but $300 was steep even for his pride. "This is not over," he muttered to the stranger, then shouldered his way through the crowd toward the saloon. "Sold to the gentleman for $300, the auctioneer announced, practically crowing with delight at the unexpected windfall. "Come on up and collect your purchase." Willa watched as the stranger counted out gold coins onto the auctioneer's table, her heart hammering. She had gone from being Dutch Cartwright's property to belonging to this unknown man. Perhaps she had simply traded one nightmare for another. The stranger signed some papers, took a receipt, then climbed the platform steps. Up close, Willa could see he was probably in his late 20s, with dark hair that needed cutting and eyes the color of storm clouds. He had a strong jaw and a scar along his left cheekbone that spoke of a hard life. "Come on," he said quietly to her. "Let's get out of here before anyone changes their mind about this farce." "What are you going to do with me?" Willa asked, her voice stronger than she felt. He looked at her directly then, and she saw something in his expression that surprised her. Anger, yes, but not directed at her. "I am not going to do anything with you. You are a woman, not property, and you are coming home." "Home," Willa repeated, confused, "to my ranch until we can figure out how to fix this situation. Now come on." He held out his hand not to grab her but to help her down the platform steps. Willa hesitated only a moment before taking his hand. His grip was firm and calloused, the hand of a working man. As they descended, the remaining women on the platform looked at her with a mixture of envy and hope. Willa felt a stab of guilt for leaving them, but she could barely save herself, let alone others. The stranger led her to a horse hitched outside the general store, a large bay gelding that stamped impatiently. "Can you ride?" he asked. "Yes," Willa said. "Good. We have got a ways to go, and I would like to be clear of town before dark." He swung into the saddle, then offered her his arm. She grabbed it and let him pull her up behind him. It was improper, riding this close to a man she did not know, but propriety had stopped mattering the moment she had been put on an auction block. They rode out of Holbrook at a steady pace, heading northeast into the high desert. Willa wrapped her arms around the stranger's waist to keep from falling, feeling the solid strength of him. She had so many questions, but the wind and the rhythm of the horse's hooves made conversation difficult. So she stayed silent and watched the landscape roll past. The sun was setting, painting the sky in brilliant shades of orange and purple, by the time they reached a small ranch nestled in a valley between red rock formations. It was modest compared to the sprawling cattle operations Willa had seen, but it looked well maintained. A sturdy house, a barn, a corral with several horses, and what appeared to be a few outbuildings comprised the property. The stranger dismounted and helped Willa down. Her legs were shaky from the ride, and she stumbled slightly. He steadied her with a hand on her elbow, then stepped back to give her space. "Name's Isaac Sullivan," he said, removing his hat. "This is the Broken S Ranch. It is not much, but it is honest work and honest living." "Willa Bennett," she replied automatically. "Why did you buy me, Mr. Sullivan?" Isaac's jaw tightened. "I did not buy you, Miss Bennett. I bought your fraudulent debt. There is a difference, though I know it does not feel like one right now." He gestured toward the house. "Come on inside. You must be hungry and exhausted." The house was simple but clean, with a main room that served as both kitchen and living space, and what appeared to be two smaller rooms branching off. Isaac lit several oil lamps, casting warm light across wooden floors and simple furniture. Everything was neat and organized in a way that suggested a man who lived alone but took pride in his space. "There is a room there," Isaac said, pointing to one of the doors. "It was meant to be a guest room, but I do not get many visitors. It is yours for as long as you need it. The door has a lock on the inside. Use it if it makes you feel safer." Willa blinked at him. "You are giving me a room with a lock, Miss Bennett. I know you have no reason to trust me. I know what you must be thinking, what you must fear, but I want to make this clear right now. You are not my property. You are not my servant. You are not obligated to me in any way. I saw what was happening in town, and I could not stand by and let Dutch Cartwright get his hands on you. That man is poison." "So you just spent $300 out of kindness?" Willa asked skeptically. Isaac moved to the stove and began stoking the fire. "My mother was sold to pay my father's debts when I was 12 years old. She was a good woman, and she deserved better than to be treated like cattle. I was too young and powerless to stop it then, but I am neither young nor powerless now." The pain in his voice was raw and real. Willa felt something shift in her chest, a cautious easing of her fear. What happened to her? She died 2 years later. The man who bought her worked her to death on a farm in Kansas. Isaac pulled out a pan and some supplies from a cupboard. "I swore that day that if I ever had the chance, I would help someone in the same situation. So when I rode into Holbrook this afternoon and saw what was happening, I knew what I had to do." Willa sat down slowly in one of the wooden chairs, her mind reeling. "I do not know what to say." "You do not have to say anything. Just let me make you some food and then you can rest. Tomorrow we will figure out the next steps." Isaac began preparing what looked like salt pork and beans, working with the efficiency of someone long used to cooking for himself. As Willa watched him work, she felt tears prick at her eyes. The terror and humiliation of the day finally caught up with her, and she found herself shaking. Isaac glanced over, then quietly poured water from a pitcher into a tin cup and brought it to her. "Drink," he said gently. "You are safe now." Willa took the cup with trembling hands and drank. The water was cool and clean, and it helped steady her. "Thank you," she whispered. They ate in companionable silence, and Willa realized she had not had a proper meal in days. The food was simple but nourishing. After they finished, Isaac showed her to the guest room, which contained a narrow bed, a washstand, a small dresser, and a window with blue curtains. "There is water in the pitcher if you want to wash up," Isaac said from the doorway. "I will be right out here if you need anything. Sleep as late as you want tomorrow." "Mr. Sullivan," Willa said, and he turned back. "Why did you really help me?" He was quiet for a long moment. "Because everyone deserves to be treated like a human being, not property, and because I saw the look in your eyes on that platform. You were scared, but you were fighting. That takes courage. The world needs more people with courage." Then he closed the door gently, and Willa heard his boots cross the main room. True to his word, there was a lock on the inside of the door. She turned it, then sat on the bed and finally allowed herself to cry, releasing all the fear and anger and helplessness of the past 3 months. When she finally composed herself, she washed her face and hands in the basin, changed out of her dusty dress into the nightgown she found folded in the dresser, and lay down on the bed. It was the most comfortable thing she had felt in weeks. Despite everything, exhaustion claimed her quickly, and she fell into a deep, dreamless sleep. Morning came with the sound of a rooster crowing and the smell of coffee. Willa woke disoriented, momentarily panicking before she remembered where she was. Sunlight streamed through the blue curtains, and she could hear someone moving around in the main room. She dressed quickly, splashed water on her face, and opened the door. Isaac was at the stove, cooking eggs and bacon. He looked up when she entered and nodded a greeting. "Morning. Coffee's ready if you want some." "Thank you," Willa said, pouring herself a cup from the pot on the stove. The coffee was strong and hot, exactly what she needed. "How did you sleep?" Isaac asked, sliding eggs onto 2 plates. "Better than I have in months," Willa admitted. She joined him at the small table. "Mr. Sullivan, we need to talk about what happens now." "Isaac," he corrected, "and you are right. We do need to talk." He set the plates down and took a seat across from her. "I have been thinking about this most of the night." That paperwork I signed yesterday, it says I paid off your debt and that you are under my, well, they called it custody until the debt is worked off. But that is garbage and we both know it. Can we fight it? Take it to a higher court, Isaac sighed. Maybe, but it would take time and money. The territorial judges are corrupt as hell, pardon my language. Dutch Cartwright has half of them in his pocket, and if we make too much noise, he might find a way to make trouble for both of us. Willa's hope deflated. So what do we do? For now, you stay here. Help out around the ranch if you want or do not. Either way, you have a roof over your head and food to eat. I am not going to force you to do anything. In time, maybe we can find a legal way to clear your name completely. Or, he paused, looking uncomfortable, there is another option. What? If you were to marry, your husband would assume any debts or claims against you. It would void the paperwork I signed yesterday because you would be under your husband's, well, protection in the eyes of the law. Willa felt her cheeks flush. Are you suggesting? No, Isaac said quickly. No, I am not suggesting anything. I am just laying out the options. If you wanted to marry someone, anyone, it would solve the legal problem. But I am not going to pressure you into anything like that. You have had enough of people trying to control your life. They ate in silence for a few minutes, both lost in thought. Finally, Willa said, I want to help around the ranch. I am not some delicate flower, Mr. Sullivan. Isaac, I grew up out here. I can work. Isaac studied her. All right, if that is what you want. I could use help with the horses and around the property. But you are not doing it to pay off any debt, you understand. You are doing it because you choose to. I understand, Willa said, and for the first time in months she felt a small spark of hope. Maybe she could not fix everything immediately, but at least here, on this small ranch with this strange, honorable man, she had a chance to figure out her future on her own terms. Over the following days, Willa settled into a routine at the Broken S Ranch. She discovered that Isaac ran a modest horse operation, breeding and training horses to sell to ranches throughout the territory. He had 4 mares, 2 stallions, and several younger horses in various stages of training. It was careful, patient work that required skill and understanding of the animals. Willa proved herself capable quickly. She had been around horses her whole life, and she took to the work naturally. Isaac showed her his training methods, which relied on building trust rather than breaking spirit, and she found herself respecting him even more. He treated the horses the same way he treated her, with dignity and respect. They fell into an easy companionship. In the mornings, they would work with the horses together. Isaac would demonstrate techniques, and Willa would practice them. In the afternoons, she would handle chores around the property while Isaac rode out to check on the grazing land he leased or to deliver horses to buyers. Evenings were spent preparing meals together and talking. It was during these evening conversations that Willa began to truly know Isaac Sullivan. He had grown up in Kansas, the son of a horse trader and a schoolteacher. His father had died when Isaac was 10, leaving debts that eventually led to his mother being sold. After his mother died, Isaac had worked as a ranch hand, saving every penny until he could head west and start his own operation. I wanted a place where I made the rules, Isaac explained one night as they sat on the porch watching the stars, where I could live with integrity and not have to compromise my principles for someone else's profit. You have built something good here, Willa said softly. You should be proud. It is not much compared to the big ranches. It is more than most people have, and you built it honestly. That matters. Isaac looked at her, and in the lamplight from the house, his eyes were warm. You are not what I expected, Willa Bennett. What did you expect? Someone broken, I suppose. Someone who had given up. But you still have fire in you. Willa smiled slightly. My mother used to say I was too stubborn for my own good. She said I would argue with a fence post if I thought it was wrong about something." Isaac laughed, a genuine sound that made Willa's heart skip unexpectedly. "I believe it. I have seen you with that roan mare. She tried to bite you 3 times yesterday and you just kept working with her, calm as anything. She is scared, not mean. There is a difference. She just needs someone to show her that not all humans will hurt her. See, that is what I mean. You understand things. You see beneath the surface." Isaac's voice had gone softer, more personal. Willa felt a warmth spread through her chest. Over the past week, she had found herself increasingly aware of Isaac. The way he moved with confidence and grace. The way his hands were gentle with both animals and things. The way he treated her as an equal, asking her opinions and listening to her answers. She had not expected this, had not wanted to feel anything for anyone after what she had been through. But feelings she was discovering did not ask permission. "Isaac," she said carefully, "can I ask you something personal, of course? Have you ever been married or close to it?" He was quiet for a moment. "There was a woman once back in Kansas, Sarah. We were planning to marry, but then she met a banker who could offer her more than a ranch hand with big dreams. I do not blame her. She wanted security and I could not provide that then. Do you still think about her?" "Sometimes, but not with longing, more like remembering a different life. She made her choice and I made mine. I came west and built this." He gestured at the ranch spread out before them. "No regrets." "No regrets," Willa echoed. "That must be nice. What about you? Was there anyone?" Willa shook her head. "My father was protective. I had a few boys who were interested when I was younger, but father ran them off. He said I was too smart to waste on the local cowboys. Then mother died and I spent my time taking care of him. By the time he died, I was 22 and considered too old for most men looking for wives." 22 is not too old for anything," Isaac said firmly. "Anyone who thinks otherwise is a fool." Well, there seemed to be plenty of fools in the world then. They sat in comfortable silence, listening to the night sounds of the desert. A coyote howled in the distance, and one of the horses whinnied softly in response. Willa felt more at peace than she had in years. This place, this man, they represented something she had stopped believing in, the possibility of a better life. The following Sunday, Isaac suggested they ride into Holbrook for supplies. Willa hesitated, not eager to face the town that had sold her like cattle, but she also knew she could not hide forever. She needed to reclaim her dignity and show that she was still standing. They rode in together, Willa on one of the gentler mares and Isaac on his bay gelding. The town was quiet on a Sunday morning, most people at church or recovering from Saturday night at the saloon. They hitched their horses outside the general store and went inside. The storekeeper, Mr. Jennings, looked up when they entered, his eyes widening when he saw Willa. "Miss Bennett." Well, that is, I had not expected to see you." "Hello, Mr. Jennings," Willa said evenly. "We need some supplies." Of course. What can I get for you?" His discomfort was obvious, but Willa did not care. She gave him their list and waited while he gathered the items. As they were loading supplies into saddlebags, Dutch Cartwright emerged from the saloon across the street. He spotted them immediately and started across, his face flushed with anger or drink, possibly both. "Sullivan," he called out, "I want a word with you." Isaac straightened, his hand moving subtly closer to the revolver at his hip. "Say your piece, Cartwright. That woman is supposed to be working off her debt. How come I see her riding around like she is free?" "Because she is free," Isaac said calmly. "I paid her debt. She is free to do as she pleases." "That is not how it works. You bought the debt, which means you own the service until it is paid. I should report you to the territorial marshal." "You do that," Isaac said. And while you are at it, maybe the marshal can investigate how a mining company can claim a dead man owes money when all the records conveniently burned in a fire last year. Funny how that happens. Dutch's face reddened further. You calling me a liar? I am calling the whole situation corrupt. But if you want to make something of it, I am right here. The tension crackled between the two men. Willa's heart pounded, and she moved slightly closer to Isaac. She noticed several townspeople had stopped to watch the confrontation. This is not over, Dutch finally spat. Mark my words, Sullivan. You are going to regret crossing me. I will add it to the list of things I am supposed to regret, Isaac said dryly. Now, if you will excuse us, we have work to do. He helped Willa onto her horse, then mounted his own, and they rode out of town at a deliberate, unhurried pace. Only when they were well clear of Holbrook did Isaac let out a long breath. I am sorry about that, he said. I should have known Dutch would make trouble. You stood up to him, Willa said, emotion thick in her voice. No one has ever stood up for me like that. He is a bully. Bullies only understand strength. Isaac, what if he really does go to the marshal? What if he finds a way to make legal trouble? Isaac was quiet for a moment as they rode. Then we will deal with it. But Willa, I want you to know something. No matter what happens, I am not going to let anyone take you against your will. You have my word on that. The sincerity in his voice made Willa's chest ache. She realized with sudden clarity that she was falling for this man. This rough, honorable cowboy who had saved her not for his own gain, but because it was the right thing to do. The man who treated her as an equal and defended her without being asked. The man who made her laugh and listened when she talked and saw her as a person, not property. Thank you, she said softly, for everything. They rode home in thoughtful silence, both aware that things between them were shifting but uncertain how to address it. Life at the ranch continued peacefully for another week. Willa and Isaac worked side by side during the days, and their evening conversations grew longer and more personal. They shared stories of their pasts, their dreams for the future, their thoughts on everything from politics to philosophy to the best way to train a horse. Willa found herself watching Isaac when he was not looking, admiring the way he moved, the sound of his laugh, the kindness in his eyes. She caught him watching her too, and the awareness between them became impossible to ignore. One evening, as they were finishing dinner, Isaac cleared his throat nervously. Willa, I need to tell you something. Her heart began to pound. What is it? I have been thinking a lot about your situation, about the legal complications and Dutch Cartwright's threats, and I have been thinking about us. Us, Willa whispered. These past weeks, getting to know you, working alongside you, I have come to care for you. More than I probably should, given the circumstances. Isaac ran a hand through his hair, clearly uncomfortable but determined. I know this is complicated. I know you might not feel the same way. But Willa, if you were willing, if you thought you might ever be able to see me as more than just the man who helped you, I would be honored if you would consider marrying me. Willa's breath caught. Isaac, wait, let me finish, he said quickly. I am not asking because of the legal situation, though I will not pretend that marrying would not solve those problems. I am asking because I wake up every morning looking forward to seeing you, because I admire your strength and your spirit, because when I imagine my future, you are in it. But if you do not feel the same, that is all right. You can still stay here as long as you need. No pressure, no obligations. Willa stood up, her chair scraping against the floor. Isaac looked worried, like he thought she might run. Instead, she walked around the table and stood in front of him. Isaac Sullivan, you are the most honorable man I have ever met. You saved me when you had no reason to. You have treated me with respect and kindness when the world had shown me neither. And yes, I have come to care for you too. More than I thought possible in such a short time. Hope flared in Isaac's eyes. Willa, but I need to be sure, she continued. I need to know that you truly want this, not just because you feel obligated or because you want to help me. I need to know that you want me. Isaac stood, bringing them close together. I want you, he said firmly. Not because I feel obligated, not because I am trying to save you, but because you are smart and brave and beautiful, and because I have never met anyone who makes me feel the way you do. Like I am better when you are around. Like I can do anything as long as you are by my side. Tears pricked Willa's eyes. I want you too, she whispered. I did not think I could feel this way about anyone, especially after everything that has happened, but you make me believe in good things again. Isaac reached up and gently cupped her face. Can I kiss you? Yes, Willa breathed. He leaned down slowly, giving her every chance to change her mind, but she did not. When his lips met hers, it was gentle and sweet, a kiss full of promise and possibility. Willa's hands came up to rest on his chest, feeling the strong beat of his heart beneath her palms. When they finally pulled apart, both were breathless. Isaac rested his forehead against hers. So, is that a yes? You will marry me, Willa laughed, the sound joyful and free. Yes, Isaac Sullivan, I will marry you. They held each other in the lamplight, two people who had been broken by the world but had found a way to heal together. Outside, the desert night sang its ancient song, and inside the small ranch house, two hearts beat as one. The next morning, they rode to Holbrook together to see the local preacher. Reverend Matthews was a kind man who had always been sympathetic to Willa's situation. When they explained their desire to marry, he smiled warmly. I would be honored to perform the ceremony, he said. When were you thinking? As soon as possible, Isaac said, glancing at Willa. Unless you want a big ceremony, Willa shook her head. I just want to marry you. The sooner the better. Then how about this Saturday? Reverend Matthews suggested. That gives you a few days to prepare and allows me to read the banns. We can do a simple ceremony at the church. They agreed, and as they left the church, Willa felt like she was walking on air. Everything had happened so quickly, but it felt right. Isaac felt right. Of course, news traveled fast in a small town. By the time they stopped at the general store to pick up some fabric for Willa to make a proper dress, several people had heard about the engagement. Most offered congratulations, but Willa could see the judgment in some eyes. She knew what they were thinking, that she had trapped Isaac or that she was marrying him out of desperation rather than love. Let them think what they want, Willa decided. She knew the truth, and so did Isaac. As they were leaving town, they encountered Dutch Cartwright again. He stood in the middle of the street, clearly having heard the news. So you are marrying her, he said to Isaac, his voice dripping with disdain. Figured you would. Can't let a good purchase go to waste, right? Watch your mouth, Cartwright, Isaac warned, his voice low and dangerous. Everyone knows what this is, Dutch continued, emboldened by the audience that was gathering. She is trapped and you are taking advantage. That is not a marriage, it is ownership with a fancy name. Before Isaac could respond, Willa stepped forward. You are wrong, she said clearly, her voice carrying across the street. Isaac never made me feel trapped. He never made me feel like property. He treated me like a human being from the first moment, which is more than I can say for you or anyone else who participated in that disgusting auction. I am marrying him because I love him and because he is 10 times the man you will ever be. The crowd murmured and Dutch's face turned purple with rage. You little, that is enough, Isaac said, stepping between Willa and Dutch. You have said your piece. Now we are leaving. This is not over, Dutch hissed. I will find a way to make you both pay. Isaac helped Willa onto her horse without responding and they rode away. Once they were out of town, Willa noticed her hands were shaking. You were amazing back there, Isaac said admiringly. "The way you stood up to him." "I was terrified," Willa admitted, "but I was also so angry. Who is he to judge us? To judge what we feel for each other?" "He is nobody," Isaac said firmly. "And after Saturday you will be my wife, and there is nothing he can do about it." Saturday arrived with brilliant sunshine and a mild breeze. Willa woke early in her room, nervous and excited in equal measure. She had spent the past few days sewing a dress from the ivory fabric Isaac had insisted on buying her. It was simple but elegant, with a fitted bodice and a full skirt. She had never owned anything so fine. Isaac had left early to do the morning chores and give her privacy to prepare. When Willa finally emerged from her room, dressed and ready, she found him waiting in the main room. He had cleaned up and wore a pressed shirt and his best pants, his hair combed back neatly. When he saw her, his eyes widened. "Willa," he breathed. "You look beautiful," she blushed. "Thank you, you look very handsome yourself." They rode to the church together, arriving to find a small group had gathered. Reverend Matthews was there, of course, along with the storekeeper Mr. Jennings and his wife, a few neighboring ranchers Isaac knew, and a handful of townspeople who bore them no ill will. It was not a large crowd, but it was enough, people who wished them well and wanted to witness their union. The ceremony was simple and heartfelt. They stood before Reverend Matthews, holding hands, and spoke their vows with conviction and love. When Isaac slipped a simple gold band on Willa's finger, she felt tears of happiness slip down her cheeks. When the Reverend pronounced them husband and wife and told Isaac he could kiss his bride, the kiss was sweet and full of promise. Afterward, Mrs. Jennings had prepared a small meal at the general store for everyone to share. It was not fancy, just sandwiches and cake, but it was generous and kind. People offered congratulations and well wishes, and for a little while, Willa could almost forget the circumstances that had brought her to this moment. She was simply a bride celebrating her wedding day. As the sun began to set, Isaac and Willa rode back to the ranch as husband and wife. The evening was cool and pleasant, and they rode close together, Isaac's arm around Willa's waist. When they reached the house, Isaac helped her down from the horse. "Welcome home, Mrs. Sullivan," he said softly. "It has been home for weeks now," Willa replied, "but now it feels official. Permanent." They took care of the horses together, a comfortable routine they had established. But tonight there was a new awareness between them, a new intimacy. They were married now, bound together legally and emotionally. Inside the house, Isaac lit lamps while Willa put away the food Mrs. Jennings had sent home with them. The domesticity of it all made her smile. This was her life now, her home, her husband. "Willa," Isaac said, coming up behind her, "I want you to know that nothing has to change tonight. I meant what I said about giving you space and time. Just because we are married does not mean," she turned and placed a finger on his lips. "Isaac, I love you. I want to be your wife in every way. I am not afraid, not with you." His eyes searched hers. "Are you sure?" "I have never been more sure of anything." Isaac pulled her close and kissed her deeply. This kiss was different from the ones before, full of passion and promise. Willa melted into him, her hands tangling in his hair. When they finally broke apart, they were both breathing hard. Isaac took her hand and led her to his room, which would now be their room. The rest of the evening was a blur of whispered words and tender touches, of two people learning each other and becoming one. It was beautiful and intimate, and everything Willa had hoped for. Isaac was gentle and patient, and when Willa fell asleep in his arms later, she had never felt safer or more loved. The next few weeks were blissful. Willa and Isaac settled into married life easily, working together during the days and spending evenings talking, laughing, and enjoying each other's company. The physical side of their marriage was passionate and fulfilling, growing deeper as they learned what pleased each other. The ranch prospered. Several buyers came looking for horses, and Isaac's reputation as a fair dealer and excellent trainer spread. The money was good enough that Isaac started talking about expanding, maybe buying more land or building a bigger barn. Willa threw herself into making the house more of a home. She sewed new curtains, planted a garden, and started keeping chickens for eggs. It was satisfying work, creating something beautiful and functional. Isaac supported her in everything, often helping with projects when his own work was done. They rode into Holbrook together every few weeks for supplies and church. The town had mostly accepted their marriage, though there were still some who looked at them with disapproval. Dutch Cartwright continued to make veiled threats and comments, but he kept his distance. The territorial marshal had apparently found no legal grounds to challenge the marriage, which meant Willa was truly free. About 2 months after their wedding, Willa woke one morning feeling queasy. She thought perhaps she had eaten something bad, but when it continued for several days, a different possibility occurred to her. She waited another week to be sure, then told Isaac her suspicion one evening after dinner. "I think I might be with child," she said, her heart pounding. Isaac's eyes went wide. "Really? Are you sure?" "Not completely, but all the signs are there. I have not had my monthly courses, and I have been sick in the mornings, and I am tired all the time." A smile slowly spread across Isaac's face. "A baby. We are going to have a baby." "Are you happy about it?" Willa asked nervously. They had not really discussed children yet. "Happy? Willa, I am thrilled." Isaac pulled her into his arms and kissed her soundly. "This is wonderful news. We are going to be a family." Tears sprang to Willa's eyes. "I am happy too." "Scared, but happy." "We will figure it out together," Isaac promised, "just like we figure out everything." The pregnancy progressed smoothly. Willa continued to help around the ranch for the first several months, though Isaac became increasingly protective, insisting she not lift anything heavy or work too hard. She found his concern endearing rather than controlling. He was just taking care of her the way he took care of everything he loved. As her belly grew, so did their excitement. They spent evenings discussing names and making plans for the nursery. Isaac built a beautiful cradle from oak wood, carving delicate patterns into the sides. Willa sewed tiny clothes and blankets, marveling at how small they were. Mrs. Jennings from town became a regular visitor, bringing advice and supplies. She had raised 5 children of her own and was happy to help a young mother prepare. Other neighboring ranch wives also reached out, and Willa found herself part of a community of women who supported each other through the challenges of frontier life. In late spring, as the desert wildflowers bloomed, Willa went into labor. Isaac rode hard to fetch the midwife, Mrs. Chen, a skilled Chinese woman who lived outside town and had delivered most of the babies in the area for the past decade. The labor was long and difficult. Isaac paced outside the bedroom, his stomach in knots every time he heard Willa cry out. Mrs. Jennings had come to help Mrs. Chen, and between the two experienced women they guided Willa through the process. Finally, as the sun was setting, Isaac heard the most beautiful sound in the world, a baby crying. Mrs. Jennings opened the door with a smile. "You have a son, Mr. Sullivan, a healthy, strong boy." "And your wife did wonderfully." Isaac rushed into the room to find Willa propped up in bed, exhausted but glowing, holding a tiny bundle wrapped in one of the blankets she had made. She looked up when he entered, tears streaming down her face. "Isaac, look, our son." He sat on the edge of the bed, overwhelmed with emotion. The baby had a shock of dark hair and was squalling indignantly at being thrust into the world. Isaac reached out a tentative finger and the baby's tiny hand wrapped around it. "He is perfect," Isaac whispered. "You are amazing." "I love you so much." "I love you too," Willa said. "What should we name him?" They had discussed many names, but looking at their son, only one felt right. "James," Isaac said, "after your father, James Bennett Sullivan." Willa's eyes filled with fresh tears. "That is perfect." Mrs. Chen and Mrs. Jennings left them alone after ensuring both mother and baby were healthy. Isaac lay down carefully next to Willa, and together they marveled at the tiny life they had created. James settled down and fell asleep, and soon Willa drifted off as well, exhausted from her ordeal. Isaac stayed awake, watching over his family. He thought about the journey that had brought them here, from that terrible day in the town square to this moment of perfect joy. He had saved Willa from being treated like property, but the truth was, she had saved him too. She had brought love and purpose and meaning into his life. The next few months were challenging as they adjusted to parenthood. James was a healthy baby with good lungs, and he kept them up many nights with his crying. But there was also joy in the small moments. James's first smile, the way he tracked them with his eyes, the feeling of his small weight in their arms. Willa proved to be a natural mother, patient and loving. Isaac was devoted to his son, often getting up in the night to walk with him so Willa could rest. They worked together as a team, supporting each other through the exhaustion and confusion that came with caring for a newborn. The ranch continued to thrive. Isaac hired a young man named Tom to help with the horses so he could spend more time with his family. Business was good enough that they were able to save money and even make improvements to the property. When James was 6 months old, they received unexpected news. A letter arrived from a lawyer in Tucson, informing them that the territorial court had reviewed the case of the fraudulent debts that had led to Willa's auction. Following a larger investigation into corruption, several officials had been removed from office, and all debts associated with the corrupt mining company scheme had been declared null and void. "You are completely free," Isaac said, reading the letter aloud to Willa. "All the legal complications are gone. The whole scheme has been exposed." Willa sat down slowly, James on her hip. "It is really over. It is really over. You are free, not because you married me, but because justice finally prevailed." Tears rolled down Willa's cheeks. "I never thought I would see this day." Isaac pulled her into his arms, careful of the baby between them. "You deserve this. You deserve to have your name cleared and your dignity restored." That evening they received another visitor, Dutch Cartwright. But this time, he was in handcuffs, being escorted by the territorial marshal. The marshal stopped by to inform them that Dutch had been arrested for his involvement in the corruption scheme, along with several others. "He will be going to prison for a long time," the marshal said. "I wanted you folks to know, and I wanted to apologize. I should have looked into those debts more carefully from the start. I failed you, Mrs. Sullivan." "Thank you for telling us," Willa said graciously. "And thank you for finally doing the right thing." After they left, Isaac and Willa stood on their porch watching the sunset paint the sky in brilliant colors. James was asleep in Willa's arms, peaceful and content. "It is really over," Willa said again, as if she could not quite believe it. "All of it. The debts, the legal troubles, Dutch Cartwright, all of it is finally over." "What do you want to do now?" Isaac asked. "Now that you are truly free, you can do anything you want. We can do anything." Willa looked at him, then at their son, then at the ranch spread out before them. "I want exactly what we have. This life, this home, this family. That is all I ever wanted." Isaac kissed her gently. "Then that is what we will have, for the rest of our lives." They stood together as the stars began to emerge, a family united by love and tested by hardship. The wild frontier of Arizona Territory was a harsh and often unfair place, but they had found a way to carve out something good and true. Years passed peacefully at the Broken S Ranch. James grew into a bright, energetic boy who loved the horses as much as his parents did. When he was 3, Willa gave birth to twin girls, Emma and Grace, who inherited their mother's determination and their father's steady nature. The ranch expanded as Isaac's reputation grew. They bought adjacent land and built a larger barn. The horse breeding operation became one of the most respected in the territory. Isaac trained his horses with kindness and patience, and buyers came from as far as California to purchase his animals. Willa became known in her own right as a skilled rider and trainer. She worked alongside Isaac, their partnership in life extending to their work. The sight of them working together, moving in sync, understanding each other without words, became familiar to everyone who visited the ranch. The children grew up surrounded by love and the wild beauty of the Arizona desert. James became an excellent horseman under his father's tutelage. The twins were inseparable, always getting into mischief together, but also looking out for each other. On their 10th wedding anniversary, Isaac and Willa stood on the same porch where they had stood so many times before. The children were asleep inside, the ranch was quiet, and the stars were brilliant overhead. "You ever think about how we started?" Isaac asked, his arm around Willa's waist. "Sometimes," Willa admitted. "It seems like a lifetime ago, like it happened to different people." "In a way it did. We are not the same people we were then." "No," Willa agreed. "We are better, stronger, because we found each other." Isaac turned to face her fully. "You know, I never told you this, but that day in Holbrook when I saw you on that platform, I was scared. Scared that I would not have enough money. Scared that I would fail to help you. Scared that I would regret getting involved. But you did it anyway," Willa said softly. "But I did it anyway. And it was the best decision I ever made. Not just because I saved you, but because you saved me right back. You gave me purpose and love and a family. You made my life mean something." "Isaac," Willa whispered, touched. "I know I do not say this enough, but thank you. Thank you for choosing me. Thank you for loving me. Thank you for building this life with me." Willa stood on her toes and kissed him deeply. "There is nowhere else I would rather be and no one else I would rather be with. You are my home, Isaac Sullivan. You always will be." They held each other under the stars, two souls who had found each other in the most unlikely of circumstances and built something beautiful together. The frontier was being tamed, towns were growing, and the wild days of the West were slowly fading into history. But here on the Broken S Ranch, love endured and flourished. Inside the house, James stirred in his sleep and smiled, dreaming of horses. Emma and Grace slept curled together in their shared bed, already best friends for life. The future stretched ahead, full of promise and possibility. And on the porch, under the vast Arizona sky, Isaac and Willa Sullivan stood together, grateful for the journey that had brought them here and excited for all the years still to come. They had been tested by hardship and injustice, but they had emerged stronger and more united than ever. The story that had begun with such darkness had transformed into one of light and love. Willa was no longer the frightened woman on the auction block, treated like property. She was a wife, a mother, a partner, a woman who had reclaimed her dignity and built a life on her own terms. Isaac was no longer a man haunted by his failure to save his mother. He had found redemption and purpose in protecting and loving Willa. Together, they had created something that would outlast them, a legacy of love, integrity, and respect that they would pass down to their children and their children's children. The Broken S Ranch would stand for generations as a testament to what two people could build when they chose to see each other as equals, when they chose love over convention, when they chose to stand together against the injustices of the world. As they finally went inside, hand in hand, ready to rest after another day of honest work and honest living, they knew that whatever challenges tomorrow might bring, they would face them together. They had weathered the worst and come through it stronger. They had each other, their children, their home, and their love, and in the end, that was more than enough. That was everything. The moonlight streamed through the windows as they checked on each child, tucking blankets more snugly around small sleeping forms. In their own room, they prepared for sleep with the comfortable familiarity of a decade together. Isaac pulled Willa close, and she rested her head on his chest, listening to the steady beat of his heart. "Good night, my love," Isaac whispered into her hair. "Good night," Willa replied, already drifting off. Outside, the desert wind sang through the red rocks. The horses shifted peacefully in their stalls. The land stretched out under the stars, wild and beautiful and free. And in the small ranch house, a family slept soundly, wrapped in love and security. This was home. This was happiness. This was the life they had fought for and built together, and it was perfect.